GameRanx presents another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some first impressions and some straight-up gameplay of the latest games releasing. This time around, we're talking about Far Cry Primal. This is obviously the newest Far Cry game, but contrary to popular belief, I thought this was going to be more of like a Blood Dragon type of expansion where it's a much smaller, cheaper game. Turns out Far Cry Primal is a full-fledged game, and it definitely shows. This is yet another massive Far Cry game in the same formula as Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4, and that might upset some of you. Now, I went into this thinking that the big setting change was going to be super refreshing and so awesome. I mean, you're playing as a prehistoric caveman. What's more different than that? How much more far removed from a Far Cry game can you get? Surprisingly, though, it's kind of an in-between. Like, it does do enough to make it different. If you were bored of Far Cry 4, Primal does do enough to make it different, but at the same time, it still does feel very, very much like a Far Cry game. You're not really taking over towers this time around, you're taking over campfires and caves. You're still doing the same stuff, you're fast traveling around, you're gathering plants, you're hunting, but I guess maybe just in the context of the caveman style, it all just makes more sense and feels more organic and just flows really well. I think they did a really great job capturing the feeling of a caveman in some ways, really with the art style. The game looks incredible. The environments look amazing. And this is just on PS4 and Xbox One. I haven't seen the PC version yet. I'm sorry about that. But this game looks damn good. It's full of detail, more detailed than the other Far Cry games. And just the style, the look of the people, the look of the animals, everything is brutal and ugly and bloody and gross and dirty, and I think that's kind of really cool and makes it stand out from the other Far Cry games a lot. Surprisingly though, even though it is a caveman game, the HUD isn't as simplistic as I would want, and there's a lot of menus and a lot of upgrade trees. That being said, the progression is good here. You upgrade very similar to how you did in Far Cry 4, where you unlock new abilities. You can also gather a bunch of materials that are very specific to different locations in the world, and gather them and craft them into weapons and ammo and stuff to use in the environment. And it all works very well. Even though there's not as many weapons, they all do still find their uses in certain ways, although I did find myself mostly relying on the bow and arrow, the spear, and the club more than all the other weapons. I found them a little less incentivized to use at times. The Beastmaster perk changes everything when you get that. It's awesome because you get to obviously control animals like saber-toothed tigers and panthers and shit, and it's ridiculous and awesome. That being said, sometimes the AI isn't so hot, sometimes they don't exactly respond to your commands right. You're gonna have to do it once or twice for them to get the picture. But ultimately, I think my biggest criticism here with this is that maybe it doesn't feel different enough in terms of the gameplay. It's very, very Far Cry here. So for some people wanting something completely different, like myself personally, I got sick by about Far Cry 4 because I had played so much Far Cry 3 that by the end of Far Cry 4, I didn't want anything to do with this gameplay. I think it does just barely enough to skate by, to feel different enough to warrant playing through the entire game. It's big, it's massive, it's lengthy, it's an open world, and I do think the price is justified. This is a full-fledged Far Cry game. And in terms of the story, it's very simple, but I actually think it's pretty cool. They went out of their way to make it feel like real caveman stuff, and cavemans communicating. The language is very crude, but the voice acting is still kind of impressive. Elias Tefexis, the guy who did the voice of Adam Jensen in Deus Ex, is the voice of Takar, the main character here, and he sounds really, really badass. There's a lot of really badass first-person action moments in this game, even just in the opener. It's really incredible stuff. And there's enough in this game, like tools and gadgets and just strengthening yourself up to take on things later on that you might see early in the game that you might want to go back and try later on. You're gonna run across a rocky cave that you can't open, or a branch that you can't pull down, or a bear or a woolly mammoth you can't take down on your own, but thankfully through finally leveling up and adding more villagers to your little cave village can actually give you the abilities to accomplish these things later on, and that gives it that kind of Metroidvania style gameplay, and that's what kept me playing. But it does do a few things here and there in terms of survival gameplay that I did not expect to see, such as managing your supplies to be able to create fire because you need the fire to scare away some certain predators at night, and just playing at night is kind of like Dying Light and how it increases the difficulty because more predators come out and it's scary. And when you go into the colder, snowier regions of the game, you have to actually manage staying warm and building a fire and not freezing to death. I didn't expect that, but it was pretty cool little features. It also takes itself very seriously. I enjoyed seeing the tale from beginning to end, but the characters are simple and it's all very serious and it's kind of threadbare. And it has no real sarcasm or fun levity to it that the other Far Cry games have. But Far Cry Primal really isn't too bad. I'm really glad I'm playing it. But my one warning is, like I said though, I'm a little split on it. If you're kind of tired of the Far Cry formula, this is more of the same. It does try different things, but ultimately if you really break it down, it might feel the same to you, and you might be bored. So I wouldn't say it's like a get up and run out and play it right now, but I would say don't discount Far Cry Primal. So you guys know the drill with these videos. I present you with the basic facts and also just kind of how I feel about it. So now I want to know what you guys think about this game down in the comments. Let's talk about Far Cry Primal. Do you like the simplistic nature of the gameplay, design, and story, or is it not really your cup of tea? Would you rather an ATV and a submachine gun? Have you completed it? Did the simple story satisfy you? Let's talk about all that stuff down in the comments and on Twitter. If you want to follow me on Twitter or Facebook at Jake Baldino, let's talk about video games. You know the drill, guys. If you like these before you buy videos, clicking the like button helps us out and lets us do even more of these. And if this is your first time here, subscribing is a good idea because we put out videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
Marimas.